Okay, you guys, seriously, Brian Brushwood. I don't know. I probably shouldn't geek out that much because I was a Wizard of Ad partner before you, so I'm pretty awesome in my own right. But like, damn, Brian Brushwood, guys. Um,
Well, it is important to remember that I've only hit that guy status where it's like people, those who recognize me, they're like, "Hey, aren't you?" And they don't know what the next words they want to say is. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Yes, I'm that guy from the internet."
If you guys want to know more about Brian from the past, then just Brian Brushwood. Google. You'll get everything you need to know. But I want to say happy birthday, man. I didn't realize it's your birthday today.
And it's one of those big birthdays with a zero at the end where it's like, okay, do I want to be the guy who's hammering nails in his nose when I'm 70? Or would I like to be the guy who leverages his expertise and excellent storytelling
Yeah.
into the world of marketing?
Well, listen, I think you've made a wise choice. I'm going to be honest with you. Was never the guy that would hammer anything into anything, quite frankly. So,
Not even at
well,
Carpenter.
no, at all. My son, my oldest son, is a renovations guy. He started his own company. 23-year-old punk who, is handy, and I'm not. Let's get into things. Man, we've talked over the last couple of months, and you're in the middle of writing this really cool piece of literature, which is all wrapped around giving of gifts and harvesting. And I don't want to talk much about it outside of you. I want to give you full reign here. Guys, please, Brian Brushwood is YouTube phenom, like millions of subscribers and multiple channels. And he didn't do it just because he's pretty, because you might think he is.
Totally
That's
not.
totally up to you. But he did it because he knows how to interact with an audience. He knows how to write to a storyline that actually is going to captivate the imagination and hold on to it and never let it go. It's the brilliance of the brain versus all the actions. And so I really want to highlight that part today for you with Brian and go.
Let's play this game. What I'll do is I'll do some crazy whiteboarding and whatever you want, Matthew, just pipe in with a request for clarification on anything because
Sure.
it's one thing to intuitively do things. Uh, I think some long timers out there are going to recognize that I'm kind of saying nothing new, but I just have a different set of metaphors for the framework. But
100%.
I do have a couple of golden play buttons to back it up. We begin with you are story, right? What you have, what you have to sell, what you have to say, what you have to do, that's your story, right? And then we've got, we'll say, sales. That's the thing you want. Now, it's not always money. Sometimes what we want is to inspire a stranger to do kindness or something. But there's what you have and what you want. And usually people are like, how do I trade the one thing to get the other thing? And then that once I have the money, I can spend it on making a better story. And that's fine. But what I find is that very few people spend a lot of time thinking about what I call the third currency, attention. Now, the closest I've seen to this is most people, when they look at the massive, unbelievable success of Mr. Beast, they remember the fact that in some interview or other, they heard him say that he spends as much time thinking about the title and the thumbnail as he does to the content. And what unfortunately people take away from that is like, oh, titles and thumbnails, they're key. We have to have the right title and thumbnail to trick people into watching the video. There is no trickery. Just assume that the YouTube algorithm, much like in life, is as close to telepathic as possible.
That's
Just
exactly
know
it. Yeah.
YouTube has made an A/B testing science down to such a granular level that all it cares about is matching ideas with needs. So you have a cloud of people, and in those clouds, there's going to be a bunch of unmet needs in the universe. When Scam School launched, I didn't call it Easy Beginner Lessons in Magic, the TV show. Instead, I called it the only show dedicated to social engineering at the bar and on that street. What does that mean? It sounds very specific. It means literally being the coolest guy at the bar. What is the method to be the coolest guy at the bar? Spoiler alert, it's beginner easy lessons in magic. But you must not say that part out loud. So the part you should be taking away from the Mr. Beast example is you want a title and thumbnail that is congruent with their unmet need. I think of your message as the letter inside the envelope, and I think of the envelope as the title and thumbnails. For example, let's say there was a check in your mailbox for $10 million, but the outside of that envelope looked like it was a Valpak of coupons, where would that $10 million check end up? In the garbage. So what we want is we want a package that is congruent and informs the audience. Let's make it clear to the audience what they're in store for.
Well, I mean, Brian, too, I mean, that's a great point. And when you talk about it in terms of copywriting, we always say that the title of the book has one job. The title of the book is to make you want to read the first sentence. The first sentence has a job, and it's to make you want to read the second sentence. And so when you think about what you're saying, is you're saying set it up so that it draws you in, but you can't disappoint once
Correct.
you get inside.
Well, and just to flesh out the story attention sales circle, and maybe I'll come up with better names of this in the future. It doesn't matter. But story is what you have. So in my case, I had a magic show, and attention is what I wanted, and that's real estate in other people's minds. Okay, that means we talk about things that live in our mind rent free. That's what I'm talking about, and it is a real thing. And anybody who knows anything about branding knows it's the most precious, important thing at all. If you have a good brand, you can lose 100% of your assets and shrug, because all that happens when you think in terms of three currencies, all that reflects is let's say all of this went away, all of your infrastructure. If you still have good story, and if you still have good real estate in other people's minds, this is only a momentary shortfall in your currencies, right?
Brilliant.
So here's the important thing. You're going to have to take this part on faith just for now. But all of my experience has indicated that there is only one virtuous cycle. There's only one direction. As I say, the circle only goes one way. When it goes the right way, then it becomes a virtuous circle where every lap brings everybody more and more of everything. When you can go backwards, it's just highly inefficient, and the only way to do it is with money, right? And that is not the way we want to do that. So we want to do it in as efficient a way as we can. So what does this look like? So you got your story, you got your magic show. Let me give you a couple examples, and then we'll move forward. In general, everybody wants to go backwards. If you have a lot of one currency, you want more of the other. The easiest example, the one that most potential clients out there are going to be thinking of, is I don't know about your storytelling business. All I know is that I have a HVAC company. I'm very wealthy. I've got this many clients or whatever. And all I care about is getting more clients. I have a lot of sales. What I want is more sales by way of getting more clients out there. So they want to go backwards in the circle. So they do naturally the dumbest thing they can possibly do, which is buy a big old fat billboard, and they make sure that their website or their name or their picture is the biggest thing on there. And yes, by the numbers, you can point to the fact that 100,000 cars go past that billboard every day. But let's tell the truth. Not one person cares more about that billboard than you. That is you serving yourself. That is not giving a gift to the audience, which we'll get to, right?
That's 100% accurate.
All right. And we know one of the great counterexamples to this is the folks over at Radiant Plumbing and AC. What did they have? They did not buy giant billboards, at least not at first. What they had was they had a fleet of 200 white box vans, service vehicles. And they realized those are coming and going every single day. So what do? They put a very simple two-color palette that was easily recognizable, kind of a whatever flavor of purple and orange. And you could see it on the horizon. And every single van was a different one-note joke. They were all low fidelity. It's somebody bowing before the majesty of a floating toilet as if in a vision or a dream. It's somebody proposing to somebody with a plunger, things that mix emotion or whatever it was. Those vans are equally painted in either case, objectively, but subjectively, all of those atoms, all of those units, all of those cells were individual gifts, units of storytelling that made a gift of everything. So that eventually, due to habituation, because brains, neurons that fire together, wire together, we eventually associate that color scheme with a good feeling that comes by. And no, I don't need any HVAC services today, but when an emergency happens, what does my brain do? What is the shortest path to cause this emergency to go away? I need plumbing thingy. Who is plumbing thingy thinking? Why am I thinking about a marriage? Radiant. I'll call Radiant, right? And that is as I put it, going forward in the circle.
Yeah, I love that example, Brian. And just so everybody who's watching, they understand Radiant Plumbing is a plumbing company down in Austin, Texas. That's where they started. Brian happens to be headquartered in Austin, Texas. So this is a very local, like this is something that's captured his brain because he lives there. This works with 15 other examples all across the United States and Canada. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood this is a very local example, and it's a very true example. So I'm happy that you're talking about it.
The important part that I want everyone to take away is at some point, somebody was doing just fine on the sales part of things, and they had a decision to make. Do we invest in attention, which is the obvious thing, which is what everyone does? Let's just buy ads. Let's get in the phone book. Let's pay an SEO guy. That is empty of narrative. They did the crazy thing and said, I'm going to pay writers to come up with ideas. Now, here's the thing. I'm not telling every plumber out there that they have to suddenly become Ernest Hemingway. But I am saying you have some number of dollars to spend, and you can either spend it on the tactical, mechanical, attention-grabbing way, or you can spend it, invest it in the slightly risky, far more exciting, and ultimately insanely more lucrative investing in story. So they paid money to hire writers to invest in story, and that's why they enjoyed success. But it works for all three. Let's say you woke up one day and like a bolt out of the blue in the middle of the night, you suddenly woke up with a billion-dollar movie franchise idea. You know this for a fact. There is a $10 million check inside of the envelope of your mind. How do you get it out? Now you have a choice. You can either do what everybody wants to do, which is, oh man, no, this script is amazing. All three of these movies are amazing. I got to get paid. So they want to go backwards on the circle. So what do? Naturally, it's the dumbest thing possible. They hop on a plane, they go to Los Angeles, they take 1,000 meetings with 1,000 producers. If they're very lucky, 100 of them have a follow-up meeting, 7 of them become option deals, 3 of them almost happen. One of them may happen, and if you're vanishingly, astonishingly lucky, the marketing, the editing, the quality of the product all align, and you get a sequel and then a third movie after that, and yeah, it becomes a billion-dollar franchise. I'm not here to say that doesn't happen. I'm just going to say I ain't going to mortgage my house on that working out. Meanwhile, what does it look like if you go forward on the circle? Because a good story is a good story is a good story. A Stephen King tweet, they used to be called tweets, kid, is the atomic unit of storytelling. A Stephen King tweet looks a lot like a Stephen King blog post, which looks an awful lot like a Stephen King novella, which looks an awful lot like a Stephen King novel, which looks a lot like a 7-book series, which looks a lot like a Stephen King lifetime. We all know this. Whatever the thing is, if it's good, it will continue to be good. Oh, but it's so good material, I don't want to burn it. I'm afraid people will consume it and then it won't go anywhere. Shush, shush, shush. Because here's the thing. We know people buy this again and again and again. Erica Mitchell liked Twilight a lot, a whole lot. So much so that she went to fanfiction.net and began to write spicy erotic literature about the vampire and the werewolf and the girl all having every kind of crazy beat 'em up threesomes. I don't understand it. It's weird to me. That's fine. This saucy S&M pornography, by the way, I'm using silly language, but this is one of the best case.
This is brilliant. Thank you for sharing this part. I remember you telling me originally a month ago. Oh my God.
In her case, she legally could not trade her story for money because she didn't own those characters, those situations. So instead, she put it the only place she could, out in the world for free, where it gathered so much attention that eventually fanfiction.net asked her to take that weird smut off of their imaginary words I'm making up, off the website, at which point she moved everything to 50shades.net, at which point her fans, so what she did is she harvested, right? You build up a certain amount of goodwill, then you harvest it. Everything you do is either a gift or an ask, a gift or a harvest, as I think of it. So she harvested in the form of action. She said, hey, everybody who enjoys my stories here, could I trouble you to actually go to a different website? And some number of them did, right? That's the equivalent of a click-through rate. She got people to join her over at 50 Shades. Then she said, you know what? I'm going to change all the names to intellectual properties, totally legally distinct characters that I will own. Vampire's now a billionaire. Werewolf's now a photographer. Girl's still an indecisive girl. But at that point, still giving it away for free, she's putting all this effort in. And then at the exact right moment, the ebook revolution occurs. All of a sudden, people who wanted to buy some saucy fiction didn't need to meet the gaze of anybody in the store. They didn't need to walk around with a book that was a loud press release about what they were reading. You could, with discretion, read on your Kindle all of this stuff. She ended up capturing the number 1, number 2, number 3 spots, all on every single ebook store. It was a revolution, right? Yeah. Then she went to Hollywood because, contrary to popular opinion, Hollywood doesn't love potential. Hollywood loves momentum, because she had already proven herself in the ebook world. Same with the publishing world. She re-released the same people who had read her free blog posts, paid to get it in ebook. Then those same people again bought the hardcovers. The same people bought the soft covers. The same people bought the exclusive gilded gold leather whip editions of it, right? And then Hollywood came crawling, and by God, the 50 Shades trilogy is a $1 billion franchise. This even works when it comes to the currency of attention. Imagine you woke up one day, you go to bed one night, and nobody knows who you are. You are nobody to the world, and then you wake up, and the entire planet, and I mean the entire planet, knows you as Mr. Britney Spears. That is really what happened to Kevin Federline. Nobody knew who he was at the beginning of February. Everybody knew who he was by the end. Now, here's the thing. Everybody wants to go backwards on the circle, right? He did not want to be known as Mr. Britney Spears. He was his own person with his own story to tell. So what did he want to do? He wanted to go backwards on the circle. So naturally, he did the dumbest thing he could possibly do, which was drop a rap album and guest star on the WWE. He was booed out of the auditorium, and his rap album was panned. If you go to trends.google.com and you type in Kevin Federline, you're going to see a big old spike that goes away, and then there's nothing, right? 2000, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, somewhere early aughts, right?
That's right. Yep.
Let's say the same thing happened to you, only you became internationally famous all over the world, just as famous, just as overnight, only it was for something that was absolutely polar opposite of what you wanted your story to be. You went from a zero air of attention to a bazillionaire of the currency of attention, but you were smart enough to go forward on the circle. That is the real life example of what happened to Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian went to bed one night, woke up the next day, there was rumors that Vivid Video had an illegal copy of a sex tape that she had made. Without her permission, they were promoting that they were going to drop it. She filed an injunction. She was like, stop, stop, stop. All the lawyers gathered. Remember, her dad is the lawyer from the Dream Team in the OJ case, so they're no strangers to shutting things down. But within a couple months, they started to sell. She did not want this to be her story. What did she do? She did not go backwards on the circle. She did not try to alter the reason for her fame. She saw things exactly as they were and understood that the long-term goal is totally different. So they worked out a deal with Vivid Video. At the very least, she was getting paid. And what did she do with that attention? She didn't hide her head and wait for it to go away. Instead, within 2 months, she had worked out a deal with E! Entertainment Television for a little show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I've never watched the show, but it went on to be one of the most popular cultural touchstones in America and the world. But what did she do? She took all of that leverage. Now she's a master of all 3 currencies. Her story is no longer about that one sex tape, that one single most awful thing. Her story is about being a media wizard as she played the game. If you look at, again, if you go to Google Trends and type in Kim Kardashian, you will see that around the time of the sex tape is exactly around the time when Kevin Federline blew up. They were contemporaries. And now, when the Keeping Up with the Kardashians peaked, she was way above all of that. And the sex tape was a footnote, and now she's gotten quiet again. Why? Do you know what Kim Kardashian is doing these days?
No.
She's become a lawyer, and she's working pro bono for free to free falsely imprisoned people. She's doing the hard work to reinvest in her story going forward in the circle so that 10 years from now, she's going to have an astonishing track record of wins as a legally astute social justice advocate. And I am here to tell you, watch for President Kardashian going forward.
Wait a second. Okay, wait a second. This is it, guys. That dropped here. Just so everybody understands. With the first time you heard President Kardashian, it was here on MatthewBurns.com. Okay, so this is really brilliant. I mean, this is something that, like you said, this isn't a new thought. It's explained very intuitively, which I really love. Through the Wizard of Ads, we talk about time being a currency, and we get that currency by crafting really good and attractive stories, right? So Roy says that attention is what we're trying to get, and that's what you're talking about here. It's the exact same thing. What I like that you've done is you're highlighting the fact that the circle only goes one way. And you can start at any one of those points, just as long as you're smart enough. You're not the dumbest thing to do, which I think is we're going to have to hashtag that and run a whole thing, the dumbest thing to do. Going forward in the circle is always going to actually add to your wealth of attention, money, and story every single time. It's not additive. It multiplies on itself and just keeps getting bigger, and that circle keeps getting bigger. If you go backwards, it costs too much of each of those things, and you just eventually flatline.
Much like in the financial world, people are advised to diversify their portfolio. Let's say you were lucky enough to buy Tesla and it exploded. This is around the time that people would tell you, hey, what you do is you sell 3/4 of your Tesla, you chop it up, and you diversify it into these different markets. So that, international, national, blue chip, and speculative, right? Yes. That's the way you want to be, so you're highly diversified. Everybody should be thinking and internalizing where they stand in the three currencies. Do not fall into the trap. Yes, it is necessary, but not sufficient to be a billionaire of story. Your thing must be good, of course, but that's not enough. You must evaluate with a cold, hard eye how much I have on that. How much do you have in the attention category? The example I give is the chips are down, your child needs a kidney. How many people, if you pressed all of the buttons you could possibly press, how many people could you reach? That is your true chips are down level. That's how much real estate you have in other people's minds. It's important to note that rather than trying to make up a bunch of categories of attention, something I see some people doing is they're all like, oh, here's your core audience. Oh, here's your casual audience. And, oh, here's your outreach. Stop it. Stop all of that, right?
Yeah,
Instead,
exactly.
Here's what I want you guys to think of. It's a very simple way to picture it. You guys know what a black hole is? You guys have seen a gravity well? You guys have seen, there we go. So what happens what happens is a black hole begins with a singularity, a little hole punched between you and they, right? Now a part of you lives inside their mind. Now it might be a very, very small bit, but if you go forward in the circle, you have a virtuous circle, so that what you could do is you can start building a relationship over time, because real estate of the mind is three-dimensional. It's a gravity well.
Yes.
And what you want to do, different people are going to exist in different spheres. Let's say this is why you must not fall for the numbers trap, because a number as a metric, you got 0 views and you got 1 million views. Well, 1 million views must be 1 million views. They're not all the same though, because if I'm running a YouTube channel called Fix Your Jeep Carburetor, then there's a lot of people out there who there is an unmet need in the universe. I need a 5-minute tutorial. I just want to fix my Jeep's carburetor, right? They come in, they find it, YouTube matches it up because it's telepathic. You fix your carburetor, go. Things you don't do. You don't buy a t-shirt at the merch store saying I fixed my carburetor. That requires more of the story-driven narrative. You need a reason that for people to buy in. So as a result, when you think about it in these currencies, you get to from 0 to 1 million views, and that's it. They come in and they go out. Now, slightly more than that, let's say your quest is not just to fix the carburetor, but instead fixing a carburetor is one chapter in your channel's quest to understand my Jeep Wrangler. Well, now anybody who has a Wrangler could be interested, and every lesson becomes a step in them understanding their own vehicle. Now you get the kind of people, you're still going from 0 to 1,000,000, but now you've offered an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. And down here, let's say at the surface level, people's buy-in is 0. At this level, maybe they'll sit through some ads, right? And then let's say you add on top of that a little bit of a character element. Once an episode, in a very slow motion, parsed out stuff, you mentioned maybe there's an off-screen character. We kind of did this with my wife didn't want to be on camera, so I started calling her Bonnie the Invisible Wife. She would show up for maybe 30 seconds in an hour-long episode of a thing, became one of the most beloved characters. Now we have characters living in people's minds, and now it's going deeper. And now you guys hit a point where it's like, you know what, guys? I'd really like to learn a brand new Jeep Wrangler. This is new. What if we started a quest together? If we could pool our money and buy a 2025 Jeep Wrangler, I will take it apart piece by piece and basically run the same narrative storytelling engine that we have been running. But now there's a buy-in. So now people are invested because these people down here, which is by the numbers, fewer than 1,000,000, let's say that's only 10K, 10,000 people. If 10,000 people care, I don't know, $3 a piece or $5 a piece, you can go out and buy the Jeep Wrangler. So around here, let's call this the Patreon tier, right?
Yeah.
I'll just say patron because who knows, platforms change. That's where people want to be directly. In between these, somewhere between ad and patronage, let's type merch. And there's ways to do merch that are smart and not smart. We'll talk about that too in the future. But ultimately, if you do it right, you have a story so good and you have a reputation of showing up consistently and providing value, of giving gifts and never over harvesting, that eventually a switch gets flipped in people's minds. As humans, we all deeply want to reciprocate when we receive value. This is why the Hare Krishnas, they used to bang drums and make a lot of noise. By the numbers, that was attention, but it wasn't good attention. They didn't make any money. Then they started doing a very quiet thing. They would go to airports and say, here is a flower. That is a gift. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Would you like to make a $1 donation? And people, even if they actively dislike everything about whatever this is, if they've received value, they feel the need to reciprocate, so people would give a buck. I'm not saying that's the way we should do things.
I was going to go right now and pandle on, hand pandle on the street. But I'm just going to give them a joke and then ask for $1 afterwards. Anyway, okay, go ahead.
But my point is, at some point, people want to signal their deep, deep appreciation for it. And as I'm fond of saying, they can't do it with their time enough. They can't do it with their money enough. And the way you know you have a real brand is when they have a tattoo.
That's it.
Real fans. You don't have a real brand unless someone has a tattoo of it. The first time somebody made a tattoo of our show's logo, there's only one proper thing to do, is you look that person right in the eye, you put on your best, most dazzling smile, you put out your hand and you say, that was the smartest thing you've ever done. You are a goat. Then you go home and you tell your wife, what have I done? A tattoo means different things to different people. I personally don't have a tattoo, but for people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll get a tattoo or whatever, there are dozens of tattoos for the properties.
Well, you've reached trust level 50 million with that human being, right? So that's fantastic. Oh my gosh.
The important part is you introed this with begin with a gift. When I first began, I knew, let's do this. Here's little Brian with his spiky hair, and he's got his little torch. There we go. He knows he can eat fire and escape from straitjackets. And I knew I had good story. Because I had awards, I had won conventions and competitions and stuff. Exactly. What I needed, the thing I wanted, was money by street performing. And so what I did was I went out to a street corner. I found, there's this street. and I found a little spot where technically it wasn't on public roads, so I was only trespassing if I stood here. You know, magic isn't like music. Music you can at least start playing without an audience. Magic, you need somebody to be paying attention and remembering what their card is, right?
That's right. Yeah.
What I did was people were coming and going all over the place, and I would shout, "Hey, everybody, gather around! We got an award-winning magic show. It's the best. I'm gonna eat fire. I'm gonna escape from straitjackets." And everybody came and went, completely ignoring me. And then the louder I shouted, a curious thing happened, because the louder I shouted, this weird bubble of avoidance happened around me. And by God, all I needed was just somebody to stop and pick a freaking card. But the more I tried to get an audience, the less I was able to do it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, there was a magician named David Groves. Now, I have no idea how many Texas-based magic awards he had, but it didn't matter because he had crowds like crazy and was making 10 times as much money as me. And he never raised his voice once. He never put on a P.T. Barnum impression. He never made a single promise. All that dude did was, on that exact same type of street corner, he sat down with a deck of cards fidgeting, and he had one thing different. He put a bunny on the table. He put a little bunny rabbit in a hat and just waited. And in front of him, people were coming and going all over the place. Every one of them, thousands of eyeballs coming and going. And eventually, for most of them, they'd look over and they would notice a very small unit of story. That is a cute, fluffy bunny. Thank you. And then off they went. Statistically speaking, though, 1 in 100 of these eyeballs would eventually self-select. They would like that so much that they would ask him for something. They would walk forward and they would fall for his trap. They would say, "Excuse me, can I pet the bunny rabbit?" And he'd say, "Of course, of course." They pet the bunny rabbit, and the moment they say thank you and turn to go away, he would say, "But you know the rule." "Well, you going to walk away?" "No." "Well, what's the rule?" "The rule is you pet the bunny, you got to pick a card." And now he has them. Because now what are you going, "Yeah, sure, I'll pick a card." Great. You got to remember it. Now the story has changed. Now the story is not just that's a cute bunny on the table. Now every pair of eyeballs coming and going, they still see the bunny, but now they also have the added layer of narrative of a magician is doing a trick. And while he's performing the trick, of course, his eyes are scanning the horizon. He's able to tell who's interested. And then he's able to pick somebody who looks right and say, "Oh, excuse me, she just picked a card. I'm worried she might forget it. Will you please will you please double check?" Again, he's giving the gift. He knows he's giving the gift. He makes the harvest, not too much of a harvest, just enough of a harvest for this guy to remember. And now the story has changed even more. Now he's got 2 people here, and everybody notices. Soon, there's a bubble of people watching this part right here, at which point he makes another harvest. He realizes, I don't want this to be part of the story. I want everybody to come in. So he says, "Oh, wait, before I reveal the card," again, at a key moment, this isn't transactional, but it might as well be. He's saying, "Oh, do you want to see the end of the trick? Here's my cost. Each of you take 3 steps forward." And now the story for anybody walking by is that this is not a dude doing a trick for a girl. There's a mob of people looking at something, by God, and it must be interesting. So then they start building in. Soon he keeps on routine by routine, providing value, going forward on the circle until finally everything collapses to 1 unit of a 20-minute street busking show. At which point he makes his final harvest. "Hey guys, we are at the finale of The Big Effect. Many of you guys know that busking is not begging. This is what I do for a living. I hope you guys enjoyed it. My name is David Groves. I'll tell you what, we're going to pass. Little girl, you were here from the very beginning. I'm going to pick up Mr. Fluffy Pants. I want you to pass that hat around. If you guys got it, like a 5 would be great. A 20 would be even better. Pass the hat. Guess what? That is the correctly signed card and the whatever. And then everybody dissipates and it begins again. That to me is the purest form of narrative-driven marketing. The narrative is the product, and it builds on itself for scaffolding. That is everything I ever needed to learn about marketing, and it's what I intend to spend the rest of my life teaching people.
Dude,
Thank you. That's my tip.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, guys, listen. Brian, thank you. Everything he said is completely true, and like I said, he's a master of this. He's a master of storytelling. He's figured out by watching others. He's learned from hard knocks. He's made the mistakes, but the reason why I got so excited at the beginning of this was because I get to have this conversation with Brian Brushwood on a regular basis. He's constantly poking things. I mean, I'm running an ad campaign now myself, and he the other day was like, "Hey, Matt, that is really great. And what if you did this one small tweak?" And I went, "Oh, I hate you. You're so brilliant." So, and then I got my writer Leah involved, and so yeah. So, guys, listen, please, if you have any questions, like put questions down below. If you have questions directly for Brian, myself, if you're a business owner and you want to learn about marketing, just reach out. We love talk. This is what we do. We love talking about it. Brian, I appreciate your time, especially on your birthday, dude. You could have told me before we got on this thing.
Oh, see, if I did though, see, that's just it. That was my trap.
Oh, nice. So, happy birthday. Enjoy the rest. Enjoy the rest of your day. I just had an idea. There's way more story here. Why don't we do another one of these and not too long?
Yeah, dude. I'll tell you what. Hopefully, anybody watching has specific questions. Here's the game I keep playing. You know how PhDs, the last thing they have to do is they have to defend their thesis. They have to know what they've figured out so well that they get in front of a jury and they're like, "What about this? Have you thought of this?" And it's like 20 years, I guess, 10, 15 years of doing it. Led me that far. And then another 10 years of like, how do I explain it? I think I'm ready to defend my thesis. So if anybody has a question, if anybody has an example, that let's make a game of chasing this thread and seeing exactly where it takes.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, good, guys. So now this is your chance. Ask the questions. Put them down here. I'm eternally thankful for you. I'm so happy that we're connected to Wizard of Ad Partners. Better than that is I love the fact that we're friends and we get to talk and hang out. Let's see if we can answer some questions for some people and move some needles.
Right on, man.
Awesome. Thank you again. And guys, we'll be back again soon with some magic. All right. Thanks, guys.